Sobriety came.
This sober vet.
Yo live, yo live, yo live,
Our mission is to normalize sobriety with veterans who are using and abusing substances in a harmful, self-medicating way. Welcome, world. I am Air Defense Artillery Army veteran Joe Yurick, and I am joined by Air Defense Artillery Army veteran Dr. Teresa Thomas, and we are This Sober Vet podcast. And if no one told you yet today, sobriety looks good on you. What up, Dr. T?
Hey, what's going on, Joe? It's good to see you again.
Always a pleasure. We're going to jump right in. Are you ready for a question?
Hit me up.
All right. So, Dr. T, every veteran brings a different story shaped by their military service, family, culture, and life experiences. Before we hear today's story, how do those different experiences influence the way someone carries trauma and ultimately finds recovery?
That's a really great question, Joe. Every veteran's journey is unique. Two people can experience the same deployment or even the same event and walk away carrying it very differently. Our military service is only one piece of the story. Family upbringing, childhood experiences, culture, personal resilience, support systems, and what happens after leaving the military, that all shapes how trauma is experienced and processed. Trauma isn't just about what happened, it's also about the meaning we assign to those experiences and whether we have the tools and support to heal. Some veterans may carry invisible wounds for years before asking for help, while others find recovery earlier because they have strong connections, purpose, or access to treatment. So recovery isn't one size fits all either. For some, it's therapy. For others, it's peer support, faith, families, services to other, or even sobriety. The important thing is to recognize that it looks different for everyone, and there is no right timeline.
Dr. T is representing those diplomas behind her. Outstanding. I love that.
You bet.
So I am super pumped about today's episode. We have retired Army Green Beret, Chris McPhee. And Chris McPhee was born in Liberty City, Dade County, Florida, where he was raised by his mother, Dorothy McPhee. Thanks to his passion for wrestling, he was able to avoid the lure of street life. Instead, wrestling gave him the foundation to develop his leadership ability, work ethic, and knack for teamwork. Chris enlisted in the Army in July of 1994, just 30 days after graduating from high school. After 21 years of outstanding active duty service, he retired in December of 2015 with 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Army Meritorious Service Medals, and a certified Maxwell Leadership team member, among other accolades. He retired as an E8 Master Sergeant. Chris joined with Ruben and co-founder Triple Nickel on November 11th, 2020. Chris is pursuing his passion in video and storytelling. He's a consumer of knowledge to transfer wisdom and life experiences to the next generation of leaders. And he is a co-author of this amazing book, Follow Me, which he sent me a copy of. So thank you so much. But Chris, welcome to the show. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me today. Dr. T, nice to meet you also.
Likewise.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So if you don't mind starting back at the beginning, can you let us know of all the branches, why'd you choose the best, a.k.a. the Army?
Army.
Why the Army? You know, that's a good question. Actually, to be honest, I actually went into the Marine Corps recruiting station first. With my dad, living with him the last couple of years, my last duration in high school, he would watch Full Metal Jacket. So I was like, man, this is, I probably watched that movie like 8 times already with him. And we watched the opening scene on a Friday night. And so that, I want to say that stuck in my head. And I was like, you know what? Let me go see what the Marines have to offer. So I walked in there and I didn't really get too much interaction. But on the way out, lo and behold, this Army guy walks out. I was like, hey, you want to join the military? I was like, okay, let me see what the Army has to offer. And so that's how I ended up in the Army, actually.
Nice. That's
Okay.
awesome.
We had a better sales pitch.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's just communication, you know? I think it's like
Yeah.
any customer when you go to shop for something or you're going to seek something, that person who interacts with you first, I think, and you'll probably go with it if the story is, if the deal is what you want, right?
Right.
If it's a good deal for you, you're probably going to sign into that deal, right?
Yep.
So,
Okay.
And then it takes a special kind of soldier to want to go the Green Beret route. So what motivated you to do that? Because that's awesome.
well, you know, I could start with, you know, the military career or, you know, my personal stuff right now. But I think before there, if you don't mind, to be honest, I think the more interesting is, you know, January 1st, 2013 is when I decided to stop drinking. Right. I think that's the very interesting point there because joining special forces wasn't something that I aspired to be as a kid. You know, I'm not from a military family. And so I actually was sitting in a briefing in what they call the professional development leadership course at Fort Hood, Texas, actually, where I'm living now. And at the time, I was just looking to advance my career. I was an E5. I was married at the time to my first wife, and I had 2 kids. So I was like, this looks interesting. I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I went back to my unit. At the time, I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I was a personal admin clerk. So I go from being an admin clerk to wanting to go be a Green Beret, which is a big jump. I think if you think about it for anybody, I go from sitting behind a desk to now I want to be this war fighter. So it took some time for me to get to that point. Actually, that was in 1997, and I was up for reenlistment. I was promoted to E5, and I reenlisted to go to Fort Bragg. And I ended up in the 82nd Airborne Division as an admin clerk in the 3505 Infantry Battalion. And so I want to say about 4 months there, being there and being around, I met actually someone who we ended up in the qualification course together, and he had just finished selection. And I asked him like a million questions. You know, how was it? You know, was it hard? Was it easy? You know, what was the most difficult times for you? So he shared that information with me, and I was able to prepare myself for the event. But about 4 months later, early part of 98, I actually went to the selection course, and then thereafter, I was selected. But I didn't start the course until about 1999. And so that started the journey there for me when it started to become real, like, okay, I could actually do this. And I was into the qualification course.
In regards to special forces, not many can go through special forces. However, you were one of the ones to be able to do that. What allowed you to be able to go through with special forces?
What allowed me to be able to go through that? Honestly, based off of the experience and actually going through the process, initially when I met a couple of individuals who attended the course, they explained how difficult it was and kind of insinuated that I might not make it because I was a small guy. You know, I'm about 150 pounds, and so to be honest, a lot of your special forces, special operation assessment courses, you know, Navy SEALs go through BUDS, SF guys go through SFAS, and then you have your Army Rangers that go through an indoctrination course to be into those units. And then most of it is like, you have to be in shape. So in high school, I was an athlete. I played football, I ran cross country, and I wrestled in high school. And so with wrestling, I was a state champion wrestler. I represented my state at the nationals, and I coached through the years of wrestling. And so in high school with wrestling gave me the foundation as far as being disciplined, having that work ethic, and self-motivation, most importantly, because when you go to those events, nobody's clapping for you, nobody's cheering you on, nobody's encouraging you there, because you're there to be assessed, to figure out if you're that person or not. And so going through that journey, probably in 2006, when I actually became an instructor at the Special Warfare JFK School and Center there at Fort Bragg, I realized that, a motivation speech I would give to the candidates getting ready to go to SFAS, to the selection course, was you have to be there on the last day, right? Because if you're there on the last day, then you have a 50-50 chance of making it. But if you quit, you will never have a chance at all. So it was more so just taking it one day at a time, waking up. That was the goal, was the next event. Then the next event was the next day, recover, and you do that for 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it wasn't just, oh, I need to get selected. No, it was like, okay, this is day one. Let me do what I need to do for day one, day two, and then eventually I was there on the last day. I was selected. It wasn't, you have no idea what they're looking at. You don't have no idea what the selection criteria is. And so you have to just show up and be able to perform at the highest level as you can at the moment. Even if you're sore, or, you have a bum knee, or you maybe twist your ankle the day before, you have to figure out a way to make it to the next day and then still perform at a high level. So going through that, I'm not saying going through something like that, I think it's more mental than anything, because there's guys that were taller than me, stronger than me, faster than me, wasn't there on the last day.
Yeah.
So I never saw it as though, it's just something I say, I think you just have to want to do it. It's like you. I'm pretty sure you went through a doctoral course and being what you're doing, and people have to want to do that,
Right.
People have to want to do what we're doing today, and I think that's just what it boils down to.
Now, what was the big mentality switch? Because you said that later on you were an instructor there. Now, so you've been through the course, now you're coming full circle as the instructor. What are you looking for in those candidates, like, for selection? Is it exactly what you're talking about, more the mental than the physical, or like being on that side of the arena? How was the mental approach as compared to going through it as a candidate?
Not being a part of the actual selection committee, because once you're in once you're a cadre there at the school, they have different parts. So the part that I was assigned to was, initially I was actually training individuals who have already passed selection in small unit tactics. So I was teaching them infantry skills, how to move in the wood line, how to carry their weapons, how to shoot. So I was teaching them what I learned and what I refined being on an ODA for those many years. And now I'm transferring that knowledge to them and assessing to see if they're able to do those things. And those events are usually, hey, did you follow instructions? Did you follow the criteria? You get a go or no go, right?
Okay.
But then I was assigned to another section where I was working with individuals who were actually going to selection, to the selection portion of the course. And at that point, I wasn't really assessing and deciding who goes forward or not. I was there to identify those individuals. I knew, okay, this person here has what it takes. And so let me encourage them in a way to let them know that, without saying, hey, you could do it, and cheer for them. Because even at that stage, at that stage or any stage, whether you're an instructor, where you're actually teaching an acute course, or you're someone who is still on the assessment side, there's some way you can still coach and mentor individuals without, clapping for them and saying, hey, you can do it. And so what I saw in most of the individuals that were actually making it, their mental toughness to show up, follow instructions. I work with 15U boys basketball team right now, and one of my mantras lately is that listening is a skill, right? And for the youth, I think it's very important that if you have a coach or a mentor, that's the whole purpose of having them, is so they could transfer that knowledge. And if you don't listen to what they are trying to share with you, then it won't happen for you. And so those are the individuals that I see that show up on time, follow their instructions like I have outlined them, and, just their behavior, how they treat each other, how they're treating their teammates, how they're treating the person to the left and the right of them, the effort they're giving doing those exercises when we're on the runs, or we're doing the rucks, or, we're doing some type of, prep training, so that they'll be right on task when they actually get in the course.
Are you enjoying these stories of veterans totally rocking it with sobriety? Here at This Sober Vet podcast, we want to keep bringing these warriors' tales of triumphs to you. However, we need your help to make that happen. We're in need of sponsors for This Sober Vet podcast. That's right, now's the time to show your support, advertise your brand, or just make a monetary donation. It's easy. Just go to our website, www.thissobervet.com. To become a sponsor, fill out the form on our contact page. To donate, just click on Support the Mission. Let's keep shining a light for those still in the dark.
And so those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm not really signing for a recommendation, but as an instructor in the course, we're also looking for those attributes, teamwork, what's their leadership styles, how, the interpersonal skills. And I think those soft skills is what is assessed very hard at the beginning, because we could teach you how to jump out of an airplane. We could teach you how to shoot a rifle. We could teach you, how to set up an ambush, but those inner skills, that can't be taught. You have to develop that over time. You either have it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good point. And listening is such an important skill, because I feel like that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Like, we need to listen twice as much as we talk. So thank you for that insight. So Chris, if we could kind of go back, the addiction of choice was alcohol. When did you start drinking?
I really don't know. It depends. And hear me out. When did I have my first drink, or like when did I start drinking to be, a thing, right? Because and I answered the first one really easy. I was in high school. I think one night I went out with my friends. We ended up in Fort Lauderdale, which is about 30, 40 minutes from Miami. Somehow we snuck into a club and we started drinking. We were taking shots of Gold Slugger, which later on the next morning I realized was horrible for me. I didn't go to school the next day. I stayed at my friend's house. And the next day I felt horrible. But I went to wrestling practice that afternoon. I showed up for wrestling practice, got my workout in, and then I never touched alcohol like that ever again. I don't know what, led me to just indulge in alcohol that night. I just don't, and when I think back to it, I just don't know. But I would say once I got into the Army, I joined at 18. And my first duty station with some senior E4s at the time. So I was a private when I showed up, and they drank. And so I was a designated driver because I was the young kid on the block. So I would drive them out to the nightlife on the weekends and some days during the week. But unfortunately, I couldn't go in because I was underage to some of these places. But eventually I was able to I'll go to some other of those nightlife places with them. But it started with just like Boone's Farm. Just something just to get a little buzz going. And I would do that prior to going. So if you're reading between the lines, so you mean you drank underage and you was driving the drinkers
That sounds like military. Right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
To the club. So, and I think, I've listened to some of your shows and we know for sure in the military, it's just a little bit, drinking is a part of culture, right? That military culture. But that's where it started. And it wasn't something that I just did, just because I was just doing it. I know some guys, they would get off and they would go get a 40 or a deuce. That's what the senior E4s at run time. They'll get a 22 ounce of beer and they would drink. But I wasn't really in that because I was still training. So I was 19 around that time, and I was still training because I was training to be on the world-class athlete wrestling team for the Army. Okay. So I was selected. And so it goes back to where I said, like, I was an athlete. So the physical part of SFAS wasn't hard for me. It wasn't, the physical part was not hard. And that's why I say the mental piece is the hardest part of going through any of that training. And so it just became, I think, later on, after dealing with life and hanging with that social scene. So it was more of a social thing because during the week I didn't do it. It was just a weekend thing. It was just a weekend thing. And then I had periods where I didn't drink because I was locked in, focused on studying for a soldier board or getting for another wrestling tournament or, so it wasn't like I was accessing alcohol to compensate for what was going on in my life or how I was feeling, if that makes sense.
If you think back, when would you say, okay, you know what, now alcohol is a problem?
Yes, and I would think back to 2004, where one night I decided to go out. I had a designated driver, and we were out. I was at Fort Bragg, and at Fort Bragg, we get days off for people who, as long as we can go without having a DUI or something like that, an alcohol-related incident. So I was out that night partying, went through the night. My buddy gave me the keys to the car because it was my car, and I put it in my pocket. But leaving the scene, I still had it, and I decided to drive home. And so I got pulled over, and I was arrested and processed for a DUI. So that's when, at that point, I don't right now at the top of my head age wise, but from 1994 to 2004, 10 years in almost is where, okay, this is snowballed into a problem because now I'm in trouble with the law, metal bracelets on in the backseat of a car.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, let's just add some layers to this and paint this scene. I was promotable. I just finished 2 deployments. I was promotable. And I was actually in our advanced non-commissioned officer course 5 days before graduation.
Ooh.
See, so I was that guy in the back of the class when the first sergeant was like, "Hey, don't go out here drinking, da 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 da," and I was like, "Nah, that's not gonna be me, man. I'm good. I got this. I got this." I would say I was probably at that stage in my career, what they call, high functioning, and didn't realize it because we would go out and drink when I was single at the time. We would go out with my teammates. We would go drink all night, and then the next morning we're running PT 5 in the morning like nothing.
Huh, Joe, that sounds familiar, huh?
I was there. I lived that life. Absolutely.
It's like, there's nothing wrong with me. You just run it out and you walk around with the bottle of a gallon of water, Gatorade. You hydrate, throughout the day, and then you repeat it that night.
Yep.
You
Yep.
Yeah.
That was my
I
life.
went through a period of that. So that's
Right.
when that night is when it became a problem for me.
Were you pulled over on post or was this off post?
Oh, it was off post. It was off
Okay,
post.
gotcha.
It was off post. I got pulled over off post. They charged me and what took me in for processing breathalyzer, cyro tests and all of that. And then they let me go and they let my teammate drive me home. And I was like, you could just
Right.
posed the question, have you been drinking? Which he hadn't not been drinking, and let him drive me home. But it wasn't supposed to work out that way. So that was just
Right.
a sign, when I reflect back on it to your question, is like when I reflect back, that was a sign. It was supposed to happen that way because so many things were going great in my life. But then that one thing was that I didn't notice was deteriorating my life slowly, little by little, and and honestly, I talk about January 1st, 2013. If you do the math, I didn't start drinking right away.
Yeah.
It didn't dawn on me until New Year's Day, before that new year coming in, that like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being this person. I'm not liking what I am seeing, and so I need to do something to making a correction.
So that was almost a decade after your DUI, right? 2004, 2013. Yeah, 9 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But like Dr. T said when answering the question, there's no right timeline for, it happens when it's meant to happen.
Right.
So you were out walking your dog and you just had an epiphany. I recall that from the book, right?
Yeah. You're exactly right. Unfortunately, if you look at what is it? In project management, I teach this theory for team development. Maslow's hierarchy of need. Self-actualization is the top of that pyramid, and I wasn't liking what I was seeing, and what made me really look at myself. The day before New Year's Eve, I was with my family. My kids were there. My wife was there. My mother-in-law was there, and it was midday, and I was drinking. And we were I won't say having marital problems, but let's just call them growth. We was having those growth moments in our marriage, and it was hard. And my wife looked at me. She was like, "Ugh, you drinking this time in the morning?" And everybody in the room looked at me like, "Oh," and I felt so embarrassed, because at that moment. So I spent that night by myself, drinking and kind of just having my own little New Year's Eve party. But the next morning, I had a little dog named Smurf, a little schnauzer. And it's, we usually walk him in the morning. And so that morning I walked him and I just felt horrible for the first time. Like, yeah, I've done all these things. I've been on, Army wrestling team, Ranger school, sniper school, jump master, Green Beret, blah, 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 you name it. But all those exterior successes then match up to what was happening inside, right? Everybody could see that, like, oh, this guy's killing it, but actually inside he's not killing it, right? He's not.
Yeah.
It's not matching up. So and that's what it did it for me. And I thought about it, and I was like, if there's one thing I could do to like get back on course, and it just came to me. It was like, hey, you need to stop drinking. I was like, and I thought about it. I was like, is it really that? I really need to stop drinking. Is it really that, or am I just going through a bad time right now? But I did. I think around that time or a year before was Denzel's movie Flight. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, where it's actually a movie about alcohol and narcotics addiction there. And so he's this killer pilot, like great pilot, very high skill, and he ends up there's planes going down, but he ends up saving some people. A couple people get killed, but they run the simulators, and they said there's no way any trained pilot could have saved that many people in the plane. But long story short, to get him, he had moments where he struggled with quitting drinking, and he went home one day, and it was this scene where he just dumped out all his booze. And so I did that. So I went back in the house that morning, all the wine bottles I had and the liquor, I dumped those out. And like I said, we were going through some growing seasons with my wife. I lived in Fort Bragg, and she had PCS to Fort Belvoir in Virginia. So I was living by myself at Fort Bragg, finishing off the last 3 years of my, finishing off my term there. And then I went back home to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I dumped out all my booze. And I was like, this is day one.
How'd that work out for you?
It worked out really well. It was, I didn't go to any, I've seen folks, because my stepdad growing up who used to go to AA meetings and NA meetings. He was an addict. And so I've been to those AA meetings. Hey, I'm Chris, I'm alcoholic. Everybody tells their story. I probably was like 5, 6, 7 years old around those times, teenager, because he relapsed several times.
Right.
And I saw that with him. And so I was like, should I do that? Do I need to do that? And I was like, no, I don't need to do that. And so that's the pride thing, I think. And I think just maybe I was just able to had enough willpower to make a self-correction on my own. Because I'm a believer that life is like a self-correcting land navigation course. You ever been on one of those? Where, yeah, you know the deal.
Yes.
You know the deal. So you start somewhere, and if you drift left and right, you're either gonna end up at the wrong stake if you're not on azimuth, and then if you bought it, you're able to adjust. So I knew what I needed to do, so I adjust, and it went, like I said, day one, day by day. Went to a week, to a month, and then every month that first year. Every month I would go to, there was an outlet in Smithfield, and I would go to the Polo store and I would buy a new shirt because, like I said, self-actualization. I didn't like how I was looking. And a close friend of mine, he always wore these polo shirts, man. He was always sharp. He was actually my roommate. And I was like, you know what? I could do that because I could afford to walk into Polo and buy any shirt amount of money I was spending at the bar. That was my thought, right? So I would just walk in there. If I saw a shirt I liked, I bought it. And so I did that for the first year, and that kept me on task. Just the fear of that night, reflecting back to what had happened, even though I had still been drinking, and honestly almost ended up with another one, and that scared me. So, but that interaction with my family is what did it. And I'm glad that happened versus me either hurting myself or hurting someone in a car accident or something like that. I'm grateful for that because I've seen so many people go through that and then they might stop drinking. And so that's how, that was the process for me. Later on, I did go to therapy, to a therapist, and I worked through that because, by that time, from a mental health aspect, there were other things, deployments, losing buddies, and isolation. It's a different mission, it's a different mindset. And so we had a therapist there in our unit at third group that I could go to. So it wasn't like I had to go too far. It was like right next door. So it was a no-brainer to start going there and just working through and giving us an opportunity to work through that versus going to a main stage and being in a therapy group and all of that. So
That's
That's how
good
I
that you
went
found a
about.
therapist.
Yeah.
Early on, when you first quit, were there any like unexpected hardships you faced in the beginning, like in the first month, 2 months that you kind of didn't expect?
Honestly, to be honest, no. It was more so when maybe my stress levels were high. Or I had a bad day at work, or I was going through it with my wife. Excuse me, because we were apart, so there was a lot of tension in
Mm-hmm.
between that 3-4 hour drive
Mm,
going on, and some days I didn't leave in a good mood, and some days it wasn't a good weekend. So that's what happened. I would drink, but I found a new, uh, I guess, something to compensate for that, and it was a Coca-Cola and a Snickers bar. That's my thing. I tell people, and then also like a dive of chocolate. So if I start
nice.
feeling a certain kind of way, I would go in the store and I would get that, and just kind of chill out a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
those are like my coping mechanisms for those hard days. But I mean, and honestly, I still went out with my friends. And I even still brought them drinks at these social events. And then, early on, I tried this whole non-alcoholic beverage thing just to
Mm,
see. And I was like, man, why you? And it actually gave me a hangover. Like I woke up the next day with
really?
drinking near beer. Yeah,
Wow.
it just gave me a headache. And I think, and then later on, I was just like, bro, just go with it, man. You either gonna be it or not, right? You
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
can't still have that feeling in it, but you want to be this person. Like you got to do it or not, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
either way. So I just cut all that out, and it was just like, hey, we're on this path. If this is what you want, this is the mindset you have to have. And luckily, I go back to wrestling in high school. You have to be disciplined to stay on a diet. I was a lightweight, so I couldn't eat whatever I wanted to eat. Some days I even ate less just to make weight. There's a lot of training I've done by myself, so self-motivation is something that I had way before I got in the military. It was just something that I developed at a very young age, and so I fell back to what was familiar to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I went about it.
nice. Did you ever have an instance where your peers, while you're still in, not mocked you or made you feel bad, or were kind of like pressuring you into drink? Or once you're like, guys, I'm not drinking, did they leave you alone?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, especially in that community. You got everybody amongst my peers there. They're like, oh man, you're not drinking anymore, or I get like, man, Chris used to be so much fun
Mm.
when he was drinking, and I was just like, man, what am I not fun anymore? Like, I mean, that's kind of why, and another reason why I stopped going out and finding other social activities to go out to the club with somebody, unless they needed me to be a designated driver, then I would do it. But then it made me think about me when I was drinking. I was like, so were you like that?
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Some nights I didn't, unfortunately, like you say, when I reflect back, like, what was the problem? Because some nights, I think from in between the actual DUI and actually deciding to quit is like, I had several, I would say I could count on my hands, probably like a good 3 to 4 times where I had a blackouts,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and so that scared me a couple of times. Like, so what happened last night?
Mm.
Yeah.
Like what did I do? Like, how did I get home? Those
Yeah.
type of instances where I was out and I had my friends and they knew to take the keys from me, because it was that, I was that guy. It was just, let's keep the party going. Let's keep the party going. And that's, yeah, that's where I had to just stop going out with them. I just
Okay.
find other activities.
Well, Chris, what keeps you sober now?
What keeps me sober right now? I think just the fear of the fear of resetting that clock, because there's a little voice pops in like, man, what if when I'm having those moments where I feel like I'm overwhelmed or I'm stressed and I'm just like, you know what, I could just use a glass of wine right now, or I could take a shot of, some whiskey, or, I could use a Cape Cod, a little Kettle One and cranberry juice right now. This is, ease me over. But that voice pops in my head. It's like, man, if you step back, but also you're like, hey man, if you just take a little sip, nobody would know. And so that living with knowing that I'm not being true with myself, that what keeps me on my path to sobriety. And I was watching one of your shorts, and he was like, hey, being sober is the flex. And it is.
Yeah.
I can see it when I'm in the room and everybody's like, yo, let me get you a beer. I was like, I don't drink, man. They're like, and I've witnessed that with folks, when I say that. But I've had a couple buddies of mine who have come to me and asked for advice because they've seen me, over the edge, and they're there now. And then one friend of mine specifically came to me, and he was like, what do I need to do, man? Like, he inquired a little bit, but then later on, it just like he had hit that point, and I'm lucky for him. And these places weren't around back then. I mean, plus we were on active duty, but he went to one of these veteran retreats where, you get a reset, and he came back like painting abstract art. So he went somewhere, someplace in like 6-8 weeks, some destined location, nice scenery. And I was happy for him because he helped drag me out a couple clubs, a couple nights. And so it was good to see him reach that point, and happy. He was like, man, I can't believe how the level of clarity you experience because you remember how cloudy things were when you were drinking. Then you start looking at, well, if I drank every day and every week, and then you start looking at how long does it take your body to start processing alcohol, and then how much you drink over a period of time, and you start realizing when you felt like you wasn't under the influence, you actually were. Your tolerance level was high.
Right.
And so you're always trying to get above the cap. And I think that's where, for me, that was the high for me, is the clarity that I experienced after my body started detoxing, and getting to a normal point.
All right. And then we have, again, like a lot of our guests get into different hobbies or something to combat what they used to do in regards to alcohol or drugs. So tell us more about your hobbies now, what you're into.
And that's a good question. Let me think on that, because I'm a pretty active guy. I would say, I wouldn't say a hobby. I got into any new hobbies. So I'm a big runner. I'm a big endurance runner. I've done 10 marathons now.
Wow.
But just overall, I think running would be it, because I was trying to qualify for Boston, and then there was a struggle at one race. I was trying to get my times down, but I was still drinking. So I was trying to train. I'm running 12, 13 miles every other day. I'm running a half marathon, but I'm still drinking. So I don't, as I reflect, I didn't add any new hobbies. I just was able to do what I wanted to do better, right?
Okay.
That makes sense. So like, I'm a runner. Like right now I'm running still at age 50. I'm still running for races and training. And then I have my son, he's 15. Okay. He's on the cross country team. He runs the 3,200 and 1,500. for his school. So I'm out there training with him. So I didn't start nothing new. I just was able to do what I was doing better.
Attention veteran entrepreneurs, we've got a special announcement just for you. Marathon Business Advisory Services is proud to present a unique opportunity, a J-Dog franchise, veteran-owned and ready for its next chapter. Whether you're looking to own your first business or grow through acquisition, this could be the perfect fit. And the best part, it's completely confidential, with no cost and no obligation to explore the opportunity. Just reach out to Jay Calandra at j.calandra@marathonbas.com to learn more. Support veteran success. Build your future. Let Marathon guide the way. Well, hold on, Chris. I think you're being a little humble. What about
That's what I was gonna say.
the Amazon Prime videos that you made? Like, how'd you get into that?
Come
Like,
on.
that's
So those
huge.
weren't, I think, I don't think, so it goes back to what I said.
Uh-huh.
I was able to do things that I was doing at the moment better,
Yeah.
right? So
Uh-huh.
if you want to go there with the documentary film,
Yeah.
that started with me just mentally not wanting to be in the mindset of war, right? So when I retired, I became a targeting analyst for a company in DC, and I deployed as an analyst 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, building target packets to hit targets in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I just got to a point where I was just like, I'm just exhausted with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, I was making good money, but I wanted something else. And a buddy of mine, actually, he texted me the other day, Rod Rodriguez. He was into podcasting, and this was 2017. He was into podcasting. And he's like, yeah, man, I have a podcast, man. I was like, podcast? What's that, man? So what's you talking about, man? I just, it's a year after retirement. He's like, yeah, I interview people. He called it the AAR podcast, where he interviewed entrepreneurs and talked to them about business.
Mhm.
So like an after action report?
Yeah. Like
Right.
after action review. Yeah, that's literally what he named it after. So he introduced me to Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Hell yeah, I love Gary. He's
So
huge motivation.
Go watch this. And I went back to my spot that night, and I watched it, and I watched all these videos. Like, man, this looks really cool. Like, I would get into this. Like I want to get into this, and so that's where I took my surveillance kit, and that I had was issued to me when I got back home, and I started Green Beret Media that year, and I said, hey, I'm getting into photography, and so. Actually, to your question, that is after committing to sobriety, yeah. So that was photography. You're right. Now that I'm looking at the timeline, you're correct. That was the new thing for me. That was the new thing, and it became not only from that, but it helped me deal with that stress. When life got a little tension, or I'm reflecting back to a moment back in the day. But photography gave me, like I always say now, like photography is about perspective, right? I could take the same photo, I could shoot the same subject from different angles and give a different emotion in each frame, right? So photography is about perspective, and I got into event photography. Then I started shooting headshots. I was in a Bunker Labs. They're not around now. They merged with Syracuse University, but it was an incubator for 6 months at WeWorks, where I was there and I was able to develop my business and work in the area. And headshots led to music videos, and then that led to much later on. What Joe you're talking about is the documentary film Black Ops, where I co-produced, filmed, and directed. It's about 7-8 episodes, and it's focusing on minorities and special operations, all the way from Vietnam all the way to GWAT. And actually, If you've seen the latest news with Major James Capers, a Marine Vietnam veteran who was just awarded the Medal of Honor. At the time, I didn't know he was that caliber of Marine.
Yeah.
And my buddy Mike Clark, who was a historian on this project with us, met with him and was like, "Hey, Chris, here's a good subject. I think he could be part of the documentary." And so I drove to his house in Jacksonville, there down by Camp Lejeune, and I interviewed him. And so little did I know, that episode, if anybody goes and watch it, you will see the citation for his Medal of Honor. We sprinkled it throughout because,
Wow.
along with not only hit what we're trying to do, but we also partner with some other organizations that help petition and to get his submittal for that award back on the table and reconsidered for his valor during his Vietnam service.
Great.
So
That's huge.
Great. Yeah.
So that's where that was the hobby. That I would say, to be honest, that probably would be something that just was a hobby turned into a passion.
Very good.
A good time for all of us now.
And if we had viewers who are contemplating, quitting, Chris, what advice would you give them? On the fence, they're thinking about it.
They're on the fence. They're thinking about it, because I had to answer this question before, just from individuals. I've had to answer this question before, but honestly, I would say if you are in a position where you're contemplating, or you're like, what you need to do. Let's just be honest, right? Bottom line, what you need to do. You don't like how you feel. It's not you. And so with that, you want to move and you want to be a better person, right? And I think it just takes, some people have a hard time finding someone to help them get there. So that would be my advice. If you can't get yourself there like I did, I got myself there, but I can honestly say that interaction with my family triggered that. So if I didn't have that moment, I don't know when I would have got to the point where I was like, you know what? I need to just stop drinking. Okay. Right? So don't let it be something life-threatening that triggers it, like you get in an accident or you kill somebody. Right? Yeah. Don't let it get to that extreme, because that's usually when things really get bad. So if you're having a hard time doing it on your own, like we always say, you got to go get some help. Like, that's just, it ain't no magic sauce. You got to go do it for yourself. And if you have family, do it for your family, your kids, your significant other. Like, do it for them, because you're not in a good light to them right now. And they might not say it, or they might say it. So if you're hearing it, it's not rocket science. Like, that's the hard truth, right? Yeah. It's a real thing. So you just look at yourself, and if that's what you want, is a better life, you want to feel better, then, make the decision to just do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
That is a great answer. And for our listeners who are not watching this, Chris started the answer with a knife hand, so that shit was serious.
Right.
I saw that.
Did you see that? Oh my God.
Yeah. It's still in your DNA, brother.
Yeah, I meant that.
Right.
Yeah.
That is too funny. That is true. That's a true statement.
Again, I want to plug your book, Follow Me. Another story I enjoyed in there was one gentleman who was from somewhere in New York City, started in a swim club, was not really welcome in the beginning. Got in the swim club. Yeah. Then he later on was teaching people. Was it at the Navy SEAL training how to swim?
No, he probably at scuba school down there. Mm-hmm. Charles Simmons. He's another Vietnam old school guy. Same era with Major Capers. Mm-hmm. same thing. Growing up in the South, working through adversity, he's swimming today. Like he's swimming today. So no, great. There's some great stories in there.
Dude, I was tearing up because, well, two reasons. Number one, when the one gentleman came up to him and was like, "Do you remember who I am? Like, you taught me how to swim." That part was cool. But when he was able to get that unit to donate to that swim club that he started back in the day, I was like, yes, like that is a huge win. That was all. It gave me goosebumps. Like, that was very cool.
No, it's some full circle moments, and a really quick one I share with you. Excuse me, General Butler, General Remo Butler, who is in there. He was actually my SWIC commander at JFK Special Warfare School when I was actually going through the Q course. So when you think back, it's like as an E5 going through the Q course, who would have think I'll be at his house? And he's also in a documentary film. I went to his house there in Tampa, sat down with him. His story is that he's the first Black general officer in special operations, and during his grad time and post grad school, he wrote a paper that was very controversial, titled "Why Do Black Officers Fail?" And so there was interesting, very full circle moment to come back as a young dude. I think I was 23.
Okay.
Nice.
Come back all the way. So some good moments in there. Some good moments.
Well, I'm proud of you, brother. Like seeing sobriety, seeing everything that you've accomplished since your sobriety, since your Army career, like you literally are a light for those in the dark. So thank you for coming on here, sharing your story. Greatly appreciated. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on that we haven't yet?
No, I think the final question is definitely it. What Dr. T posed there is like, I want to hit on that again. Like, please, if you're that person, guy or gal, like, you owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself. Just do it. I'm Chris McPhee, and that's how I became this sober vet.
Recovery thrives on connection. Like, subscribe, and follow this Sober Vet podcast so more veterans can hear the message that change is possible.